First Chronicles 26. I actually have given this a title, if you want to title it. I've called it The Battle for Hebron, or Hebron, however you pronounce it. The Battle for Hebron. Now we're going to look into some of the we're going to look at this historically through the scriptures quickly, but we're going to look at something here, and then I want to quickly relate it to our lives, okay? So I'm going to start in 1 Chronicles 26, starting in verse 28. 1 Chronicles chapter 26, starting in verse 28. It says, "And all that Samuel the seer, and Saul the son of Kish, and Abner the son of Ner, and Joab the son of Zeruiah had dedicated. And whosoever had dedicated anything, it was under the hand of Shelemith and of his brethren. Of the Israelites, Chenaiah and his sons were for the outward business over Israel, for officers and judges." And I want you to pay attention to the next couple verses. It says this, "And of the Hebronites, Hashabiah and his brethren, men of valor. 1,700 were officers among them of Israel, on this side Jordan westward, in all the business of the Lord, and in the service of the king." These men were able to keep things in perspective, to keep things in check. They could serve the Lord and serve their nation well. That's a testimony that when he just talks about this group of people, he says, "And these people, in all the business of the Lord, and in the service of the king." Verse 31, "Among the Hebronites was Jerijah the chief, even among the Hebronites, according to the generations of his fathers. In the 40th year of the reign of David, they were sought for." Sought. This was a group of men that were sought out. If they were the Hebronites of this family, they were sought out. That's a good testimony to have. That's a good testimony to have, that people would seek you out. "And there were found among them mighty men of valor at Jazer of Gilead and his brethren. Men of valor were 2,700 chief fathers, whom King David made rulers over the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, for every matter," here it goes again, "pertaining to God and the affairs of the king." This group of men had a testimony. They stood for the things of God, and they could serve their nation well. Do you understand the importance of being able, on one hand, to serve God and still how to serve your nation well? There's a great testimony there. And this is where my whole study started, in reading these verses. What is it about these guys? What is it about the Hebronites? Well, it got me to study Hebron, the place. You see, Hebron wasn't always, now you're going to get a little bit of a history lesson as we go through. Hebron was not always called Hebron, okay? We're going to start now. We're just going to go through some scriptures quickly. We're going to start in Genesis 13. I've got a path. We're just going to just run through the scriptures, starting in Genesis chapter 13. Abraham was called out of the land of the Chaldeans. He was called out of the Gentiles. Abraham was a Gentile who was called out of the Gentiles to start the Hebrew race, okay? Technically, the name comes from, like I say, I think it's his grandpa or his great-grandpa Eber is where they originate the name Hebrew from. But in Genesis chapter 13, Abraham has left. He was called out in chapter 12, okay? And God told him, "You go to the land where I tell you, and I'm going to give you the land." So look at Hebrews 13, starting in just look at verse 18. Genesis 13:18 says, "Then Abraham removed his tent, and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. First time you find Hebron mentioned, Abraham is coming there based on a command by God to leave. Abraham shows up there and he builds an altar in the land of Hebron, okay? Now listen carefully. I'm going to say this. When Christopher Columbus supposedly, and I'm saying that just because some people may argue the point whether he did or not. When he supposedly discovered America, what was it called?
India.
What was it called? Now everyone would say it was called San Salvador. That's where he landed, right? According to your history lessons, that's where he landed, right? San Salvador. They were looking for a way to the east, the Indies, right? Of a different route. And so they thought they were going to India from a different direction. Okay? Which is why the name Indians comes in America. They were called Indians because they thought this was the other side of India. We circled around the globe and showed up on the other side of India. It was not. So, listen, when they say Columbus discovered America, remember this, it wasn't called America, okay? So, Abraham shows up at this place and it's called what? Hebron. Right? The Plan of Mamre, which is in Hebron. Now here's the thing. It wasn't originally called Hebron. It wasn't originally called Hebron. He's telling you, Abraham went to this place. We're going to look at the history as we go through and find out what it was called. Genesis chapter 23. We're going to make an application at the end of all this, okay? Genesis chapter 23. Abraham was given a promise, wherever I tell you to go, the land will be yours. Okay? Genesis chapter 23, verse 1. And Sarah was 107 and 20 years old. These were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kirjath Arba. The same is Hebron in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And Abraham stood up from his dead and spake to the sons of Heth. And it goes on. And Abraham makes this. We're going to look down the same chapter. Verse 17. And the field of Ephron, which is in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field, and the cave that was therein, and all the trees that were in the field, that were in all the borders round about, were made sure unto Abraham for a possession in the presence of the children of Heth, before all that were at the gate of his city. And after this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, the same is Hebron in the land of Canaan. And the field and the cave that is therein were made sure unto Abraham for a possession of a burying place by the sons of Heth. Now let's give you a little quick understanding. It was actually, the area was actually originally called Kirjath Arba, okay? Kirjath Arba. You got it? It was called Kirjath Arba. We're going to see why it was called that. But here you go. Abraham shows up to a place. He builds an altar. Abraham even buys property. Buys property in Hebron. God told Abraham, when you go to these places, I'm going to give it to you. I think there's a lesson here that we're going to learn here in a moment, okay? He's not getting the land for free. He's paying for it. Okay? Genesis chapter 35. Genesis chapter 35. We'll look at verse 27. Verse 27 says, And Jacob came unto Isaac his father, unto Mamre, unto the city of Arba, which is the same as Kirjath Arba, which is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac sojourned, And the days of Isaac were 180 years, and Isaac gave up the ghost and died, and was gathered unto his people, being old and full of days, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. This has a place now. You have Sarah's buried there. Now you have Isaac's buried there. Of course, Abraham. You have people being buried in this place that they've made a purchase of. It's been purchased, and people are literally being buried in this place, but it still at this moment has the name Arba or Kirjath Arba. Okay? It still has the name. Exodus chapter 6. Exodus chapter 6. What's so big about the Hebronites? Exodus chapter 6. Now let's look at verse number 16. Exodus 6 verse 16. And these are the names of the sons of Levi, according to their generations, Gershon and Kohath and Merari. And the years of the life of Levi were 137 years. The sons of Gershon, Libni, and Shimei, according to their families. And the sons of Kohath, Amram and Izhar and Hebron. And Uziel, in the years of the life of Kohath, were 133 years. So Hebron is a descendant of Levi. It's a person now. A descendant of Levi. And he is a son of Kohath, of the Kohathites, which are of the Levites. So these are men who are in the service of who? God. At the same time, they serve the nation, don't they? The Hebronites were Levites. The Hebronites were Levites. We're looking at a group of people, the Hebronites, but we're looking also at a land, okay? Hold your place here. Actually, no, we're going to go into Numbers anyway. Go to Numbers chapter 3. Numbers chapter 3. I did not pull out every verse on Hebron for today. There's so many more scriptures on it, but I have a lot. We're going to cover a lot of ground quickly. Numbers chapter 3. Hebron's going to be a well-known place. By the time this is done, you're going to know a lot about it. You're going to know the original name. You're going to know Abraham and Sarah and Isaac are already buried there. You're going to know that it's Hebron, used to be Kirjath Arba. Numbers chapter 3, look at verse number 19, first of all. Numbers 3, verse 19. And some of this is just repetition in a way. And the sons of Kohath by their families, Amram and Izhar, Hebron, and Uziel. And I can give you more references. Verse 27 says, and of Kohath was the family of the Amramites, and the family of the Izharites, and the family of the Hebronites, and the family of the Uzielites. These are the families of the Kohathites. So I'm just giving you the understanding. There's a lot of scriptures that mention these people and their lineage, okay? Go to Numbers chapter 13 now. Numbers chapter 13. This is a very popular place in the scriptures. Numbers chapter 13. A lot of things took place here. It says, and God is talking to Moses, and as they're searching out Canaan, they send the 12 spies. Numbers chapter 13, verse 21. Says, so they went up and searched the land from the wilderness of Zin unto Rehob, as men come to Hamath, and they ascended by the south and came unto Hebron. Now listen carefully. Technically they did not come to Hebron. At that time, they came to Kirjath Arba. It still has the old name at this moment. It hasn't changed names yet, okay? The Hebronites have not taken the land. They're spying it out. They ascended by the south and came unto Hebron, where Ahimah, Shishai, and Talmai, the children of Anak, were. Now Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. So, the sons of Anak. Does anyone know anything about Anak? The Anaks, or Anak was the leader. The Anakims were giants. They were some of the tall people that when they saw these tall people, they were like, they're too big, they'll kill us, and they fled. So Hebron was the place where the giants dwelt. It was like a major headquarters for the enemies of God's people. That's a big deal. It's a major place for the enemies of God's people. Okay? Now, look at Joshua chapter 10. Joshua chapter 10. At this point, Jerusalem is not a Jewish or Hebrew city. At this point, Hebron is not a Hebrew city. At this point, the children of Israel have sent the spies, and they've searched out the land, and all the land is still owned by the enemies of God, who were literally torturing their young, and who the children of Israel learned a lot of heathen practices from. And here in Joshua chapter 10, we'll look at verse 1. It says, "Now it came to pass when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, had heard how Joshua had taken Ai and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and her king, so he had done to Ai and her king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them. Then they feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, as one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all the men thereof were mighty. Wherefore Adonizedek," remember, heathen king of Jerusalem, heathen city, king of Jerusalem, "sent unto Hoham, king of Hebron, and unto Piram, king of Jarmuth, and unto Japhiah, king of Lachish, and unto Deber, king of Eglon, saying, Come up unto me, and help me, that we may smite Gibeon, for it hath made peace with Joshua and with the children of Israel." These kings, the king of Hebron, which is still Kirjath Arba at the moment, okay? It's still Kirjath Arba, but the king of this territory literally joins with the others to fight even those that make peace with Joshua. Joshua ends up taking part in the battle. Jump back to verse number 36. Here we go. Verse 36. "And Joshua went up from Eglon, and all Israel with him unto Hebron, and they fought against it, and they took it, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and the king thereof, and all the cities thereof, and all the souls that were therein. He left none remaining according to all that he had done to Eglon, but destroyed it utterly, and all the souls that were therein." At this point now, Joshua has conquered the land. Joshua now owns the land of Hebron, which is still Kirjath Arba. Okay? Joshua chapter 11. This is where it starts changing. Joshua chapter 11, verse number 21. "And at that time came Joshua, and cut off the Anakims from the mountains, from Hebron, from Deber, from Anab, and from all the mountains of Judah, and from all the mountains of Israel. Joshua destroyed them utterly with their cities. There was none of the Anakims left in the land of the children of Israel. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod there remained." Anyone know anything about Gath? Goliath was from Gath. And later on, David's going to have to fight Goliath. The giants are still in existence at this point. Though he destroys all the ones in the land of Hebron, there's still other giants out there. Joshua chapter 14. Joshua chapter 14. Look at verse 14. Actually, verse 13. "And Joshua blessed him, and gave unto Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, Hebron for an inheritance. Hebron therefore became the inheritance of Caleb, the son of Jephunneh the Kenite, unto this day, because that he wholly followed the Lord God of Israel. And the name of Hebron before was Kirjath Arba, which Arba was a great man among the Anakims, and the land had rest from the war. The land was known for a warrior and a leader they had called Arba. The land of Arba. It was known. Arba's name was well known. He was one of their great men. Kirjath Arba. And now it's been taken over and given to Caleb. Wait, hold on. Is Caleb of the lineage of Moses?
No.
Is he of the lineage of Levi? He is not. So who are the Hebronites? The Hebronites were Levites, weren't they? They were descendants of Levi. Caleb gets the land. Joshua 21. Joshua 21. It says, the children of Israel, verse number 8. And the children of Israel gave by lot unto the Levites these cities with their suburbs, as the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses. The Levites did not get to own their own territory, but the children of Israel, each of the land that each tribe owned, had to give the Levites a city or two. Verse 9, and they gave out of the tribe of the children of Judah and out of the tribe of the children of Simeon these cities, which are here mentioned by name, which the children of Aaron, being of the families of the Kohathites, who were of the children of Levi, had, for theirs was the first lot, and they gave them the city of Arba, the father of Anak, which city is Hebron. Why is it called Hebron? Because this land was given to them by God. It was given directly to a descendant of the Levites, the Hebronites, and these men went in and possessed this city for God. In the hill country of Judah, with the suburbs thereof round about. It's named after the Levites that were given the land free and clear. They didn't have to come in and buy the land. They didn't have to make a purchase. They came in and it was just handed over freely. Didn't God tell Abraham that he was going to give him the land? He says, God just told him, go in and possess the land. Go take it. It's yours. It's yours. Abraham starts out buying the land and he starts burying his dead there. God says, I'm giving you the land. I'm giving you the land. Now, we're going to look at quite a few other places really quickly. Hold your place here. Let's look at one more verse in this chapter, because look at verse 12. But the fields of the city and the villages thereof gave they to Caleb the son of Jephunneh for his possession. Thus they gave to the children of Aaron the priest Hebron with her suburbs. And then look at this, to be a what? A city of refuge for the slayer, and Libnah with her. Not only is Hebron a special city, it's literally dedicated as a city of refuge. That those that may have committed a crime by accident could come and they could flee, and they could wait there until they figured out, did this guy really kill this guy on purpose? They could flee to this city of refuge. Listen, as soon as Hebron is inhabited, guess what? It was a major city for the enemies of God already. It was a major city. It was known for Arba. It was known for people of might and valor. It was known for giants. And guess what? Let me just say this. I'm going to start making the spiritual application. Okay? I'm going to make a spiritual application. When Satan loses territory, he wants it back. Listen. When Satan loses territory, he wants it back. And I told you, the thing is this. It's called the battle for Hebron. The battle for Hebron. The Anakims are removed. The children of Israel get it. The Levites get it. The Hebronites get it. These people they were a sought after people. These people would serve God and serve their nation well. It's a good thing they were there in this city. Look at 1 Chronicles chapter 6 for just a moment. 1 Chronicles chapter 6. We're going to go here and then we're going to jump backwards. I was trying to keep them sort of in order, but I'm going to jump here really quickly. 1 Chronicles chapter 6. Verse 54. This just goes along with what we read, okay? It's just simply a confirmation of what we just read. Now these are their dwelling places throughout their castles and their coasts of the sons of Aaron, of the families of the Kohathites, for theirs was the lot. And they gave them Hebron in the land of Judah, and the suburbs thereof round about it. But the fields of the city and the villages thereof they gave to Caleb the son of Jephunneh. Now Hebron was in the land of what? Where does it say? Hebron is in the land of, look at that verse number 55. Is there any significance to that? It's a Levite city. Think about it. Levites. But what comes out of Judah?
Christ.
The king. This is a combination city of the kings and the priests. This is a major city. It belongs to the Levites, but it belongs to Judah still. It's still in the territory of Judah. This is a major thing here. He says this, verse 56, but the fields of the city and the villages thereof they gave to Caleb the son of Jephunneh, and to the sons of Aaron they gave the cities of Judah, namely Hebron, the city of refuge, and Libnah with her suburbs, and Jatir and Eshtemoa with their suburbs. Okay? Just a quick, go to 2 Samuel chapter 2. 2 Samuel chapter 2. In 2 Samuel chapter 2, I'm going to start reading in verse 1 now. And it came to pass after this that David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said unto him, go up. And David said, whither shall I go up? And he said, unto Hebron. Whoa. David? Go to Hebron? Verse 2, so David went up thither, and his two wives also, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, Nabal's wife the Carmelite. God doesn't say it's right. He doesn't condone it. He's just telling the facts. He had two wives at this point. And his men that were with him did David bring up, every man with his household, and they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. And the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king. Over the house of Judah. And they told David, saying that the men of Jabesh Gilead were they that buried Saul. What is a major event that takes place at Hebron? It's all coming to pass. The king of Judah is now literally anointed king in this city. It's a city that is owned by the Levites, the city of refuge. And David is living now in this city of refuge. He's been fleeing from Saul. But now he's in this city of refuge. And I want you to look, as David has been anointed king, I have another reference. 1 Chronicles. Hold your place here because we're coming back to 1 Samuel. 1 Chronicles 12. 1 Chronicles 12. And I want you to see what takes place. This is a major city. This is what you would call a turning point city. Okay? The battle for Hebron. The turning point city. Look at verse 23. And these are the numbers of the bands. 1 Chronicles 12:23. And these are the numbers of the bands that were ready, armed to war, and came to David to Hebron to turn the kingdom of Saul to him, according to the word of the Lord. This is the city where God brings David and says, I'm removing the kingdom from Saul and I'm giving it to you in Hebron, a city that is owned by Judah, but it's also owned by the Levites, and it's also a city of refuge. This is a turning point city. This is a city that every bit of this is based upon. And the Kohathites are a very key people to this very place. Now go back to 2 Samuel chapter 3. We don't have much further to go, but we're going to see some major events take place really quickly here. David is anointed king in Hebron over Judah, okay? 2 Samuel chapter 3. I want you to look at verse, look at verse 12 for a moment. So I'll give you a really quick understanding. Saul has died. Judah has anointed David king. But everybody doesn't want David king, and there's still some people that are trying to fight David. And one of them is a son of Saul. And he's trying to fight David, one of Saul's descendants, Ishbosheth. And he's fighting David. And he's got a man who was a servant to Saul, and now he's a servant to him. His name is Abner. Now, Abner is a man who will play the game. He'll play sides. Abner's a man who he'll kill somebody. He can't be trusted all the time, nor could Joab. Those two men were not always trustworthy men. Verse 12 says, And Abner sent messengers to David on his behalf, saying, Whose is the land? Saying also, Make a league with me. And behold, my hand shall be with thee to bring about all Israel unto thee. You make an agreement with me. Abner's trying to work the deal out here. Hey, you make a deal with me, and I'll bring all Israel under your authority. I can work this. I'm the man that can pull the strings. I can get everybody to serve under you. But later on in the chapter, verse number 27, of course, David made a deal with Abner. Abner's working the deal out. Joab smells a rat. But here's the problem. And when Abner was returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him quietly, and smote him there under the fifth rib, that he died for the blood of Asahel, his brother. Joab kills Abner. Where at? It says this. He took him aside in the gate. He's standing in the gateway of what? A refuge city. When David tells his son, don't let Joab's head go to his grave, that man is a murderer. Why? There's something about this place. This city's got to be protected. It's stand for righteousness. It stand for holiness. The city of Hebron has got to be protected, and we can't let a man get away with committing crimes in this city, a city of refuge. And he kills him in the gate of the very city that he had no right taking a life in. A city of refuge, you can't just come and kill somebody at will. Even if you're an avenger of blood, you have no rights. The city doesn't belong to you. You may be a bounty hunter, but when you get to the gate, as soon as you get in the gate, you have no rights. It's a city of refuge. And David tells his son, don't let this man's head go to the grave.
That's right.
He needs to go to the grave in blood. He needs to die for his murders. And he's accused of murder. Joab is. This is an important place, and it's got to be protected. Verse 19 through 22. And Abner also spake in the ears of Benjamin, and Abner went also to speak in the ears of David in Hebron, all that seemed good to Israel. He was a smooth talker, and that seemed good to the whole house of Benjamin. So Abner came to David to Hebron, and 20 men with him. And David made Abner and the men that were with him a feast. And Abner said unto David, I will arise and go, and will gather all Israel unto my lord the king, that they may make a league with thee, and that thou mayest reign over all that thine heart desireth. And David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. Listen here. David made peace with Abner. Joab had no right taking his life. He went against the king's peace. Look at 2 Samuel chapter 4. A couple more passages, we'll be done. 2 Samuel chapter 4. Abner served Ishbosheth. These men killed Ishbosheth. Verse 8, and they brought the head of Ishbosheth unto David to Hebron. They bring the head of Saul's son right into the city to show David, and said to the king, behold the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, thine enemy, which sought thy life. And the Lord hath avenged my lord the king this day of Saul and of his seed. And David answered Rechab and Baanah his brother, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, and said unto them, as the Lord liveth, who hath redeemed my soul out of all the adversity. When one told me, saying, behold, Saul is dead, thinking to have brought good tidings, I took hold of him and slew him in Ziklag. Who thought that I would have given him a reward for his tidings? How much more when wicked men have slain a righteous person in his own house upon his bed? He said, Ishbosheth had every right to fight me. He had every right to fight me. If he wanted to be my enemy, he had every right. You don't have a right just go taking lives whenever you want and bringing that head to Hebron. Shall I not therefore now require his blood of your hand and take you away from the earth? And David commanded his young men, and they slew them and cut off their hands and their feet and hanged them over the pool in Hebron. You say it's a city of refuge. Yes, but when a person in the city of refuge is found guilty of murder, then the avenger of blood is allowed to take their life. And when they walk into Hebron claiming we killed somebody, you are guilty. And David had every right to take their lives. Though it was a refuge city, it's a refuge only for people that have maybe killed on accident, not for people who intentionally murder somebody. To go and try to hide your sin and live in your sin in the city of Hebron, not allowed. Sin doesn't have a right to just exist. Hebron's a major city. Chapter 5, here we go. 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 3. So all the elders of Israel came to the king to Hebron, and King David made a league with them in Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. Now he was already king of Judah. He is now king over all of Israel, all 12 tribes. And David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months. And where does he go from Hebron? And in Jerusalem he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Judah. He reigns for 7 years and 6 months in Hebron, goes and reigns the rest of his time in Jerusalem. What's the last part we're going to go to? 2 Samuel chapter 15. Last reference. 2 Samuel chapter 15. Look at verse number 7. And it came to pass after 40 years that Absalom said unto the king, I pray thee, let me go and pay my vow, which I have vowed unto the Lord in Hebron. For thy servant vowed a vow while I abode at Geshur in Syria, saying, if the Lord indeed shall bring me again, indeed to Jerusalem, that I will serve the Lord. He just tells a lie. He says, I vowed a vow, and I... Look at verse 9. And the king said unto him, go in peace. So he arose and went to Hebron. And Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, as soon as ye hear the sound of the trumpet, then ye shall say, Absalom reigneth in Hebron. Let's go back to that city. Let's take it back. Can I tell you this? When Satan has lost territory, he wants to get it back. Listen, he can't have it back. He can't. If Jesus Christ owns your life, Satan cannot have you back. The truth is, he still wants you back. And he's going to keep trying to fight for every piece of ground that he lost. And he's going to try. Listen, you didn't have to. When God says, if you will trust me, I'll give you this. If you'll obey me, I'll give you this. There's a lot of people going through life trying to buy the land that God said he'd give them. God said, I'd give you this. How much is it worth? It's free. I'm going to give it to you. You don't have to buy the land. But once he gives it to you, listen, once God gives you eternal life, once he gives you a home, once he gives you the Holy Spirit, the devil himself says, I used to own that territory. I used to own that person. They used to belong to me. That person was mine. I want them back. And I'm going to do everything I can to fight and make that piece of ground a miserable, wretched piece of ground. The fight for Hebron. Man, if he could just get Absalom to rule and reign from Hebron, he can destroy the nation of Israel again. He can remove the law of God, the people of God. He can remove the true king. Listen, you and I don't need to give up 1 inch of ground. We need to be like these people, the Hebronites. We need to be able to say this. I ought to be a sought after. You ought to be a sought after person in this generation. You ought to be a sought after person. God has given you eternal life. He's changed your life. You're a new territory. The name has changed. It's no longer Kirjath Arba. It's now Hebron. Your name, he gives you a new name. When you come to know him, he changes everything about you. And though Satan wants to get a hold of you, he wants to change your name, he wants to change the ownership, he wants to change everything, don't give him 1 inch. You ought to be a sought after person. In this generation, there ought to be some sought after people. People who will stand for God no matter the cost, but can still serve their nation well. I think there's a principle that we can learn from the battle for Hebron. Satan wants it back. He wants it back. Listen, I'm not trying to be political, but I believe this nation was founded for some biblical principles, and I believe Satan wants it back. I believe he wants this property where this church sits. I think he wants it back. I think he wants everything that he ever used to own. He wants it back. Don't give him an inch. Don't give in. Stand up for your God no matter the cost. At the same time, serve your nation well. Serve well. Don't get them out of perspective. I believe you can do both. For this people, the Hebronites, were praised for being able to do both. We're going to divide up, have a time of prayer. It's your lesson for tonight. Hope you learned something. Hope from now on, as you're reading through the scriptures and seeing these names, they give you a little more of an understanding of some of these places and some of these people. We're going to divide